Good morning, all the participants of an anonymous course on natural resource management. This particular session is dedicated on applications of geospatial technology for urban and regional planning. These shall be the broad contents on which, for this entire 1 hour session, I'll be dealing about some fundamentals, importance of urban planning, the technological aspects, data required, data sets which are available, and then I'll take on some applications in urban and regional planning. Also, how the government of India is utilizing this technology for various mission programs and our research endeavor. So I'll move to the presentation now. Let me start with some basic definitions. As we all know, urban areas, as per Census of India definition, it is characterized by higher population density and also infrastructure in comparison to areas surrounding to it. So it will include all cities, towns and conurbations, that is the influx of the people, excluding the rural settlements. So broadly, it is put into two categories. The first category is the statutory places. Second category, where all three criteria they are met. So in the statutory category, there will be municipality, corporation, cantonment board, or notified town area committee, or it may be a census town or other categories which meets the criteria of minimum population of 5,000. At least 75% of main working population is engaged in non-agricultural pursuit, a density of population of at least 400 persons per square kilometer. So these are the classification scheme as proposed by Census of India and how the urban areas are classified. We also got a term called region. So region is a term particularly in the context of urban planning where physical conditions are homogeneous. It ranges from a single feature or region to a compatch, that means group of region, depending on the criteria used for delineation. We all understand that the importance of regional planning in recent times has gained more importance for the reason that when the urban areas they are growing in the surroundings, and the surroundings, their development, pragmatic development of the surroundings also equally important as the development for the urban areas. And accordingly, the government has laid emphasis by drawing various policies and regulation by coming up with the various development schemes or the regions like national capital region and so forth. The urban areas, they are broadly put under four categories. Those are statutory towns, census towns, urban agglomeration, outgrowth. Now, statutory town, if you look at the previous definition, all places wherever any government has brought about any legislation, any ordinance by defining any area like municipality, corporation, cantonment board, or notified town area committee, etc. Census towns are those towns, if you look at the previous slide, where three criteria, that means a minimum population of 5,000, at least 75% of the male is working in the non-agriculture pursuit, and a density of population of at least 400 persons per square kilometer. Next two categories are urban agglomeration, which is nothing but any urban spread which is comprising one or more towns and their adjoining outgrowth. Outgrowth, whenever any newer schemes development comes out, surrounding that development the urban settlement also comes up. So accordingly, areas which are surrounding any city or town like railway colony, university campus, port area, which are lying outside the town limit, they are called as outgrowth. Now, if you look at the statistics as per Census of India, As per 2001 census, there were 5161 towns were there, but as per the 2011 census, which happened almost a decade ago, we had 7935 towns. So accordingly, the next census is also due, and we all know there's a tremendous pressure in urban areas. Though there has been the recent pandemic, it has caused reverse migration effect. That is again subject matter for discussion and also for the research. But otherwise, if you look at the previous census, that is 2011, we had 31.18% of the total population as urban, and assumably they were contributing nearly 63% to GDP. But as per the decades to come, it is going to rise. Already it is projected that the urban population has gone nearly 35% and going to rise further by 2030 to 40% and going to contribute nearly 75% of the GDP. That means 80% when the urban areas are growing. The question is whether the facilities, infrastructure, are we ready? It is said that researchers, urban planners, and engineers they say that 80% of urban area of 2030 yet to be built, and a new city of the dimensions of like city like Chicago to be built every year. So there is a challenge. When there is a challenge, there is opportunity. Now, in that such case, why there's importance for urban planning? Because urban areas, though India is primarily an agrarian society, but in recent times it is understood that for the country to grow is also inevitable that the urbanization processes, industrial processes, they also has to be given the importance. So keeping this in mind, urban areas, they are the engines of growth. They provide services and economics of scale. They also contribute in country's economy and employment. And there is a pull factor. So as a person who migrates and comes to a city, then passes on the message back to his hometown, to his nears and dears, that hey, I'm doing well, you can also join me. So kind of pull factor which is there, which causes influx to the cities and rising population. Once something of this order happens, there certainly is going to cause issues or the concern for urban planners. So, like this, the lack of open space, there will be infrastructure which was made ready for certain period. Now there will be overcrowding, congestion, and all we know that the slums are rising in across the country, and then there will be pressure on various kind of infrastructure like drinking water, sanitation, and so on and so forth. So we need information from the ground, information from other resources. In such case, the technology like geospatial provides information at much faster pace than one can understand, one can collect from the ground based resources. So let us try to understand how the geospatial technology provides the information to the urban planners. So, as such, there are various technologies which are available. You might have heard in the previous lectures since the beginning of this course. We are my friends here, colleagues here, they have them deliberated on remote sensing technology, principles, fundamentals, and also range of satellites which are available from spatial resolution to the coarse spatial resolution. We have got tools like photogrammetry, that's the art and measurement using aerial photographs, or also they are maturing where the satellite images, they're also processed, acquired and processed in a similar fashion. The way we are doing for the other resources, now we have got stereo pair which are available from satellites and they are processed using the digital photogrammetry techniques. Then we have got, because to see the terrain characteristics, particularly at large scale. And when you're standing, somebody is standing on the street and its surroundings, in such case, technology called close-in photogrammetry will be very handy. We have got the technology called light detection and ranging, where instruments like terrestrial laser scanner or the space-bound sensors are also coming up, but their applications, because of the poor poorer building footprint. As of now, they've got still the limitations, but they're finding applications for natural resource management from the satellites like ISAT glass, etc. So the terrestrial laser scanner, which works the LiDAR, helps in three-dimensional or the 3D city modeling of urban areas. So once we have got all this information is put into GIS, and then layers are created. These layers can be integrated and subject to the analysis query by the planners and engineers. Now, another question is a device called Global Positioning System or Global Navigation Satellite System, GNSS. We also require this technology is helpful also primarily for georeferencing of satellite data, also for collecting variety of resources which are present in urban areas through assets mapping technique called assets mapping and put into GIS. Now we have got other technologies also like UAV, which are helpful because the because looking at the large scale mapping requirement of the urban and also for the rural areas, as per the announcement made by our Honorable Prime Minister of India in recent time, the UAV data is also gaining very high importance. To map the subsurface features in a non-destructive manner, particularly in the urban areas, and which has also got applications in the geology and elsewhere, we can utilize the instrument called ground penetrating radar. This GPR helps to map the underground utilities, and one because all the maps which are available in our context, they are available in the either in the form of sketch underground utilities maps. They are available in the form of sketch or all the blueprint. So how to question is how to bring this information in a systematic manner into the GIS. So such kind of device will be very useful. Now, when you talk about per se about the urban planning, we require information. Now, the information will be of varied nature like physical, legal, social, or also the management. You require money or the resources. So, in that case, we also require the fiscal management. Okay. In that context, let us look at the physical parameters in urban areas. We require variety of information like the different kind of infrastructure, building footprints, land use, land cover, or and also the variety of resources which are available like the soils, geomorphology, etc., etc. So the remote sensing data has already, it's well known for variety of these information. They can be derived using remote sensing technology. So now to have the policies or the framework for the future development of the urban areas, we require some policy framework. That policy framework comes from the various kind of plans. So a typical plan like master plan or the development plan, this can be devised with input drawn from physical parameters or from the social understanding and also by the policy, all the policies which are ingested into the plan making process. So this way we have got the legal framework. Now, satellite data also helps us to derive the various parameters, not all, to some extent, about the various, social understanding. For example, if you look at the data here, it is also telling us the proximity to the settlements, proximity to the river or water bodies, proximity to the river or the water bodies or their pattern or their texture. So based on all these, looking at the image interpretation key which has been taught in the beginning of this course about shape, size, shadow, pattern, texture, association, etc., etc., we can find out various social strata. Of course, this has to be verified also on the ground. So this way, these are the information data set which are required for typically for the urban planning. Now, question may arise, are traditional urban planning which is not dependent, which is primarily dependent on the field or ground-based measurements and also the technological know-how, the experience of the urban planners and engineers. The question comes, why one should use the geospatial technology? First of all, as I try to explain in the previous slide, it contains a wealth of information. The same data is utilized by the engineers, by the planners, by the water resource scientists, by the hydrologists, by the other people who are working in the urban areas to derive the information. So it contains a wealth of information. Now, this data can be put in the digital form so that one can prepare or one can replicate the information or one can easily do the analysis. Now, this data is subject to the information extraction and further the spatial query and from mapping function to find out the information linkages as how one information is linked to another and let us to combine or disjoin it. In such case, spatial query function can be utilized. And particularly because the urban areas, they are very dynamic over the period of time. As the built up surfaces increases, it changes at certain cost. So the behavior of a land can be specified. One can find out the urban sprawl. And finally, this all information can be integrated into the GIS as we learned in the previous one. And you try to, you kindly recall already the reflectance curve, which is nothing but Bible for data interpretation, where I have put only three basic features as they are present in the urban areas, basically the concrete or the impervious surface and also the soil, vacant land, etc., etc. Vegetation in different forms which are present, like in the parks, lawns, or the tree cover, or the as a urban forest within the urban area and surroundings, or the water body in different form like streams, canals, or the recreation spaces which are available in the urban areas. So these are the broad reflectance curve depicts the broad category of land use land cover which are present in the urban areas. One can also visualize, get into the details how these vegetation spaces, green spaces, over the variety of density, species, or the landforms, they are present in the urban areas according to their signature at species level, at time, spatial time domain, they will vary. It is again subject matter of discussion and also the research. Now the question is, when somebody is getting into the geospatial technology for the urban planning, what are different issues one has to handle, one has to find out the solution. These are kind of variety of resolutions which are available, which decides the kind of data to be utilized for urban planning. Now again, the next issue is the bands. So the according to the resolution will be spatial, spectral, radiometric, and temporal. You might have, in the initial lecture, this has been explained. Then comes the band. Band means panchromatic, multispectral, or hyperspectral. Again, the next issue is the ideal date of pass for utilizing the supply data for information extraction. Next is the scale. So that scale will decide that one is going for the perspective plan or the regional plan or the development plan or the local or the site specific plan. Next issue is the false color composite or the natural color composite. And then the information extraction. So one can use the pixel based methods or one can utilize the neighborhood based technique. Finally, the information has to be ingested into the GIS and for the analysis purpose, and one can also utilize the chain detection. The question is that one has to optimally decide based on the objectives set for a particular purpose, and accordingly one has to choose the data, one has to choose a platform, one has to choose a method of analysis. Accordingly, if you look at the spatial resolution, so as we all know, the satellite remote sensing, particularly for the urban planning, gain importance once the proliferation of the satellite data of high resolution, very high resolution, where one individual could find, flag out his dwelling unit. Now it one could feel so enthused that this how I'm able to find out where I'm living. That's how the remote sensing has gain importance and is touching our lives. So accordingly, it's needless to say that the higher spatial resolution has definite role to play. And that's how I like to mention, if you look at the prominent books which are available on the remote sensing of urban spaces, they say particularly, though the remote sensing of the natural surfaces, they started in the civilian domain in the 1960s and onwards, but the in the recent times only, importance of remote sensing for urban planning, the importance has gone tremendous, particularly with the proliferation of the high resolution satellite data. So this way one can find out that his own dwelling unit, and also this has got importance in the context of urban and regional planning at different scale, ranging from local area plan to the development plan to the regional or prospective area plan. Next important issue, when you talk about the spatial resolution, there is also important that one has to look into various elements of image interpretation. Issue also comes about the land use versus land cover. I hope you are aware and the distinction between these two classification schemes. Now, when you look at the spectral resolution, it's also equally important that the spectral resolution plays very important role because it decides the feature discrimination, because it enhances the ability of the interpreter to discriminate various urban features. And also important to say, in the recent times, hyperspectral data and applications in gaining importance for urban features detection. Though still in the spaceband platform, moderate resolution hyperspectral data is available, which has found limited usage, but airborne hyperspectral data is gaining importance. The temporal resolution is also very important to understand the, the for land use transformation, urban sprawl, and so on and so forth. And the radiometric resolution, it enhances the ability of the features and interpretation. If you look at the spatial resolution, it is broadly put into three categories. Though the classification varies from, as put into the different websites or the books, they are varying. But mostly I found that the resolution which is better than 4 meter is put into the high spatial resolution. There's another category called very high spatial resolution also. Then comes the medium spatial resolution, then the low spatial resolution. So this has got linkage with the planning scale that I'll deliberate in the later slides. That's how the Indian remote sensing satellites, they have evolved from the coarser resolution to the recent times high spatial resolution with the sub-meter data is available, where one can find out individual dwelling unit or the high large scale urban landscape. So, ISRO has launched variety of satellites which are useful for urban and regional planning. Already in the orbit, variety of satellites are available from the Resource Sat, from the Cartosat, from ranging from 1 to the 2 series, and the recent launched Cartosat 3. We also got satellites which are going to come up in the near future from the micro satellites, HRSat, from the microsatellite which is going to work in the NICER, which has got the S band, which will be helpful for urban areas detection. And also, we're going to have the ResourceSat 3 and 3A, which higher spatial resolution and also multispectral in nature. We're also going to have in the times to come where the resolution will be also higher, which will be also the multispectral, and also we're going to have the along with the multispectral going to have the stereo capability. So there's the future is challenging, also the solutions are evolving for large scale mapping of urban spaces. Now this shows chronological in reverse order how the satellites, particularly in the high spatial resolution, they have been mapped, and recently, most recently, the launch in the late 2019, we had a launch of Cartosat 3. And otherwise, in from the foreign sources, we have got worldview data, which is of the order of 31 centimeter, and the multispectral is 1.24 meter. Variety of satellite data is available, and these all details I have mentioned for the benefit of the participants here. These all details, they are available in the literature. Some of these details I have mentioned here that each satellite has got certain frame size, they have got certain revisit time, and they have got certain the resolution. And this resolution also dictates the scale at which the feature can be mapped. I'll also like to emphasize the importance of Indian remote sensing satellite data. The this is about the data cost which I've taken from the National Remote Sensing Center website. And when I compare the Indian remote sensing satellite data, you will find that they are much cheaper as compared to the data which is available from the foreign sources. Though at certain times it becomes an inevitable to, based on data availability, we look for the varied sources for data, to meet the data requirement accordingly. But if you look at the cost, a typical frame of 10 kilometer by 10 kilometer of the Cartosat 2, the data is nearly 3000. But if you take out the foreign satellite data, the cost varies from $10, which is archive product, to the order of $48 per square kilometer, which will be particularly the multispectral data with stereo capability. So each has got advantage, disadvantage, but particularly I like to mention that based on the objectives one sets for a given purpose, one can choose depending on the resources available kind of satellite data that will be chosen for the particular analysis. I like to also mention about the data sets which are available, because the time has come where the people are discussing that rather than beginning from the satellite data acquisition, information extraction, are there some sources where the data can be acquired, some process data can be utilized, and straight away it can be utilized for the analysis and planning purposes. Okay, in that context, there are variety of sources which are available. So there are satellite data. Of course, they are available in the moderate spatial resolution. One can download from the Noida website of the Bhuvan. One can go to the NASA website. One can go to the USGS website and download the moderate or high coarser spatial resolution satellite data. One can also visit variety of websites where some kind of process data like land use, land cover, or the watershed boundary, or the wastelands data, or allied all these kind of data which are available in the web portals. One can also look into the various disaster based information which are available for dissemination at variety of resources. One can also look into the meteorological and other data which is available at different platforms. Now, not only the optical bands, and also in the times to come, and already it is well known, the data from the LiDAR, data from the micro remote sensing data satellite, data from the hyperspectral, or data from the thermal bands, they are also equally important. Why the LiDAR is important? LiDAR is important for the three-dimensional monitoring the urban spaces, and we have got, though from the space bound, still the limitation is there for large scale mapping, though the data set is available from the ISAT 2 glass. But from the airborne sensor, we carried out some sense study, and we found that the building height could be achieved up to of the order of 0.2 meter to the 1 meter. If you look at the micro remote sensing satellites, it is possible to generate the building footprints, land use, land cover mapping, which otherwise mixes in the optical bands or the building height extraction, because in the using the hyperspectral remote sensing data, because in the urban areas, because of the impervious surface and heterogeneity of the urban spaces which are not well captured using the optical data, and variety of impervious surface like bricks, concrete roof, road surfaces, bare soil, sand, etc. So these has got distinct wavelength where the peak arises. So based on these all material properties, if somebody is utilizing the hyperspectral data, so material distinction can be made based on the spectral library which will be generated previously, or based on the ground knowledge. One can also, because in the process of urbanization, when the natural surface changes into the urbanization, In that case, it also changes the thermal regime of an urban area. So this can be captured, and this land surface temperature phenomena can be mapped using satellite remote sensing. Another technology is the ground penetrating radar, as I mentioned earlier, that which also works in the remote sensing phenomenon, where the GPR sends the electromagnetic energy, penetrates the surface, and then one can find out the subsurface information. The GPR works in 15 megahertz to 2 gigahertz, but particular which has got applications in variety of domain, ranging from urban utilities to the neotectonic studies, and but particularly for the urban utilities of the order of 200 to 400 around. In this region, normally the utilities are placed below the surface in urban areas. One can utilize the instrument like GPR, which is showing the antenna and which has got a data logger, and one can find out if the GPS is also mounted on the instrument. One can find out the depth of the subsurface utility, their position. Mapping can be done based on dielectric constant behavior of the different material. So let us now move with this background. Now I'll try to move about the data and processing. Now we all know, I need not tell you that we all play with the false color composite. How the false color composite is built? It is built on by the band combination satellite data which is acquired, a typical satellite data which is acquired in green, red, and infrared. Now you can see how different material, how the urban surfaces they behave distinctly in different bands. If you look at the green, and you have to kindly recall the spectral reflectance curve. You look at the red, which has got the absorption for the urban areas, but with the feature tone is distinctly high for the infrared surface or the cultural features, and then the infrared, where the peak is seen because of variety of reasons. Now the information content is quite high in the infrared, where the urban vegetation and also the built up, and all surfaces are they showing very distinct signature, though the surfaces like the tarred surfaces, like the water bodies, or any kind of structure where the where it is under shadow, those will be under the showing the relatively lower signature. But if you put all these three, we call it as false color composite. Now it is good for interpretation, but on the public domain, for a commoner, normally the geoportals do not put into the false color composite, for the reason that in the natural color composite, all the signatures they almost appear like the way as we see with the naked eye. So in that case, a natural color composite is also gaining with importance, which is built based on certain band combinations from the false color composite. But of course, we all know as remote sensing scientists that the false color composite is good for interpretation. But okay, but the natural composite color composite is good for the commoner for the visualization mostly. As we see here, kind of distinction as you see in the vegetation, you might see that the kind of this kind of boundary based on vegetation senescence. As we see here, kindly see here or kindly see here, the tonal variation that will be not so distinct in the natural color composite. But we have also got various digital image processing techniques like edge enhancement, so and so forth, where we can make, if I zoom this product, you might see with the edge enhance the building footprints, the roof. I mean, we can better interpret the data. Boundary will be much sharper. Road or cultural features will be bounded much sharper if we apply this kind of enhancement technique using the digital image processing, which are good for interpretation. And accordingly, we can apply different kind of resampling techniques. So these all algorithms are available in a typical digital image processing platform, for which enhances the image interpretation. Okay. Now, because as I said, the remote sensing data works in the temporal domain. Now you can see how the urbanization processes have got enhanced because of certain policies, because of the people's intervention, because of the period of time. You can see how the built-up surfaces they have increased along the road at different parts of the city, and you can see here how the cluster of houses they have come up. This can be mapped using the temporal remote sensing data. So this is about the data availability. Now I'll take on my deliberation further with the planning processes. Now, as in a typical planning process, we know at the Corsa scale, we have got perspective plan, we have got regional plan, we have got development plan. At local scale, we have got the local area plan or we have got the special purpose plan. So like this, the planning per scale, planning purpose changes. My purpose, my emphasis here is, if you kindly recall, we have got variety of data, we have got variety of resources. So one should rely upon coastal remote sensing data for handling the perspective plan or the regional plan, but one has to utilize the high spatial resolution satellite data for the local area plan and other purposes. So we'll deliberate this point in the slides to come. How this planning level, when the planning level changes, scale of mapping changes, and the information content changes. When you talk about the macro level, regional or perspective plan to the development plan to the local area plan, where one can utilize, as I said, one can utilize the Corsa scale satellite data, one can utilize the mesoscale satellite data, and one has to utilize the large scale, high spatial resolution satellite data for micro level plan. Accordingly, the scale of mapping changes to 50,000 and Cursor 1 is to 10,000 or Cursor, or may in the case of micro level it will be 1 is to 1,000. And also the information content will change. Now, in the case of macro level, one can go for the urban land use land cover at level 1. When it goes to the meso level, one can go to the level 2. One can go to the at micro level. The information content will be level 1, level 3, or level 4. What is this level? I'll deliberate on the next slide. And accordingly, you can see other information content also. They are changing as we are increasing the scale, as we are changing the purpose. So accordingly, when you look at the scale of mapping versus, you will see in the level 1, we'll say all built up urban areas as a single class called built up. When you go to the second level at the scale of developing plant 10,000 or nearby scale, same built up area will be further reclassified into rural, residential, industrial, commercial, and recreational based on the land use as we information we gain from the ground. When you go to the level 3 or level 4, you say within the residential, high rise, medium rise, low rise, and so on and so forth. And within the further out, information content increases. So that means one has to decide about the purpose, and the purpose, when it is decided accordingly, the satellite data is also decided. This is how the information content is derived. You might see the top two products, they are speaking. I mean, all the satellite data for different parts of the urban area, they're speaking something. I want to emphasize here, satellite data speaks. Satellite data gives some information, and it is left to the interpreter or the viewer to derive the information. You might agree that the top two products, there you might find there's some certain uniform geometry is there, pattern is there, and the layout of houses, and also the road layout and the buildings. But if you look at the bottom two products, they are all appear to be unplanned. But there also you can see the chaos, the unplanned surfaces of high density. That means how the urban areas they are classified as planned high density, planned low density, unplanned high density, unplanned low density. How the urban areas can be classified based on built up density, and how the land use land cover will derive based on manifestation of the satellite data. If it is a residential, one can easily find out the layout of houses. Based on the certain geometry, one can find out the auditorium. Based on the prior knowledge from the ground and also from the pattern as we see on the ground on the satellite data, one can put into the institutional. Based on the transportation data information which is available, which will be the railway, road, etc., etc. One can find put into the transportation category based on the pattern. That means there will be industrial area, there will be sheds which is casting some shadow, there will be kind of gabion roofs will be there will be effluent which is coming out, and one can put in the industrial based on the geometry of the surface and based on the road layout, based on the appear to be the shopping complexes, and based on the ground formation one can put into the commercial. That's how the land use land cover information is derived using the remote sensing data. A planners understand about the grid plan. This is how you can see a city. Of course, you'll agree, and you can easily find that this is a part of Chandigarh city where the grid iron pattern is seen, and you can see the uniform geometry of the roads. One can also see the radial geometry of the roads, and like Washington, Connaught Place, Delhi, or the part of the Tamil Nadu. This is how from the node how the roads are emanating in a radial fashion. Now I'll move on to the next topic, that is the application. When you talk about the geospatial application, the urban planning broadly is put into various categories. Urban planning, which includes the base map preparation to the extent of plan preparation, and one can go to the growth modeling. Then comes the inclusive planning, which speaks about the vulnerability analysis and the mapping of the informal settlement. One can go for the urban governance, which includes all the physical properties, that is the property taxation, urban governance, municipal governance, etc., etc. One can go for the urban environment, that will be the green spaces, landscape analysis, solid waste management, etc. Then the heritage conservation, urban design, urban beauty, urban hazard. Some of these applications I'll try to, because the time is limited and each study has got enormous data and also the analysis and also the experience of the researcher which has gone. So I'll briefly touch upon some of these applications. When we talk about the first and primary thing, that is the urban planning, we start with the base map and also we start with the land use land coverage. And this is the typical ward map which has been extracted as a part of the satellite data. Now you can see the high resolution, different kind of layout. And based on the schema that one can generate, and one can follow the different schema which is available, which was used for different mission programs after deliberations. You might recall program like National Urban Information System, where the classification schemes have been derived, and accordingly, the classes will be in the level 4 will be residential, level 3 and level 4 will be residential, commercial, then the religious and the educational, and so forth. Accordingly, their footprints then have been mapped, and this will be used for subsequent purposes. Then one can go for the sprawl based on the time series data. This is Dehradun city, which was once before the formation of the state and the capital. It was a sleepy city and an abode of the people who superannuate and then want to live the peaceful life. A city was calm and and then it was contained to, and which is confined by the northern in the Himalayas and the southern side by the Shivaliks. And also only the most favorable part of the urban surfaces, they are mostly urbanized. But with the passage of time, you can see how the urban processes based on densification or in the urbanized fashion, they have grown, and this has been captured by the satellite data. If you got this kind of information, then the question comes how the planners can utilize this kind of data for planning purposes. Like, if the growth is happening, which is inevitable, how should the growth should happen? That means whether it should be business as usual, that is the baseline scenario, or no, if this is a baseline scenario where the scattered fashion anywhere the city dwellers or the planners or the colonizers, the way they want, with the least intervention by the regulators, by the decision makers, the city is growing. But it will cause enormous pressure on the land, Also, it will also cause enormous pressure on the service providers that the infrastructure has to be laid wherever the urban dwellers are settled. So let us have another scenario where the compact growth scenario will be there, where the density will be much higher, and in such case the infrastructure will be laid in such a fashion it will not be larger in horizontal dimension, but the capacity will be enhanced in within the pockets of the city based on the population density. So this will be compact growth scenario. But no, a planner will say, because no, let us have a third kind of scenario where the city is there and it will have just its own satellite town. So accordingly, this will be connected. These two will be connected with some kind of rapid transport system, and they will be each city will be self-contained, and based on the facilities will be much not strained, and also the planners and engineers can safely plan their resources. So this kind of scenario building based on growth modeling can be conducted. Another dimension, as I said, that is the third dimensional modeling. So how the satellite data helps? Satellite data, because each, and when you look at the higher resolution satellite data, satellite each urban feature casts the shadow. Look at the tower, each feature is casting the shadow, but based on the solar elevation angle and based on the height of the object, looking at the utilizing the trigonometric principle, one can find out the height of the object. If you got this kind of information, either manually or with based on some automated technique, one can find out the how the urban spaces they are utilized. This decides about the utilization of the urban spaces called space use, and accordingly find out one can find out the urban density. If you got the urban density, then in the urban governance issue which is coming up about the property taxation, a very popular method is called unit area method, which is based on variety of parameters. Not only the FAR is also dependent on variety of factors like use, occupancy, age, structure, and variety of factors. One can put all this information as separate layer into the GIS, and the information will be coming in the either from the satellite data, or it will be coming from the ground and then put into the GIS. Putting into the analysis, one can look and one can do the spatial analysis to enhancing the property taxation. Already, certain municipalities at global and India level they are conducting. Now, as I said, that issue is coming up for the planners and engineers. Are there some ready-made data sets where the information can be derived and one can straight away go for the analysis? So one such endeavor in the past was NUIS, National Urban Information System, where countrywide 152 towns were taken and 16 layers for master pump formulation, which are typically required as infrastructure and physical layer for the master plan formulation. They were generated. These all layers are available to the decision makers and planners. Now, I'll move on to the other applications. These applications are rooftop solar potential assessment. It is coming up in a big way, and particularly it is with the emphasis laid on National Solar City Mission. Satellite data has got wide usage because the the solar potential is dependent on the solar insolation. It is also dependent on the footprint area, that is rooftop area. So if we got these two information, solar insolation, and then we got the building footprint information, put multiplied by the efficiency, one can find out how much potential, solar potential is available in any given area. We conducted some experiment and we found that if only 30% of the roof area if we consider in a certain area, then nearly 2.5 times of the energy which is being currently utilized that can be generated. That's how the government is laying the emphasis on solar potential estimation. though it is capital intensive, but it pays in the longer run, and one can utilize the satellite data for potential estimation. Another application is the water utility and demand analysis. Now, normally, in the typical urban planning processes, how the water demand is assessed based on certain guidelines that per liter per capita, which may vary from say 135 to 150 depending on the kind of town, and then multiplied by the urban population. And for given administrative unit, one decides about that there is a overhead tank, and this overhead tank is going to serve this much area, and this much is the population, and then this much is the per capita low requirement multiplied. But the question comes, are there will be losses, there will be pilferage, and there will be pipelines, and there will be junctions, and there will be terrain undulation. Are these all factor accounted with the conventional or traditional technique by multiplying with the true information? No. So it's how the geospatial technology coupled with the hydraulics model and using certain equations like the Darcy-Weisbach or Hazen-Williams, one can utilize this kind of information which requires length of the pipe, diameter of the pipe, velocity to find out the head loss. If you got the head loss, then accordingly one can find out that these are the beneficiary areas, and what is the terrain, where is the how is the terrain undulation is happening, what is the height of each point, and there is overhead tank, and this overhead tank is going to get the supply from certain resource, and then once you have it, what should be the head loss? That means, so what should be the height of this tank so that this person living at the tail end of the catchment command area, it should also get the water and should not be devoid and always complaining. This is how the energy and hydraulics based models, they can be combined with the GIS, like the solutions like EPANET, etc., etc. They can be utilized for the water supply and demand analysis in the urban areas. Another application is the UHI, urban heat islands, which are the nothing but anomalous temperature variation, land surface temperature variation because of the urbanization processes where the living or the comfort, urban comfort goes poorer as the urbanization processes goes higher, and the natural processes, natural features keep on going inferior. Accordingly, the satellite data, which who offering the data in the thermal region, that means 3 to 14 micrometer, that can be utilized for land surface temperature mapping and the anomalous temperature behavior in certain area over a period of time. They can be mapped, and UHI phenomena as compared to the peri-urban or in the rural region, they can be mapped. As I said in the beginning of the lecture, that is the hyperspectral remote sensing, where each kind of urban material has got its own peak which behaves distinctly. So if you got rather than multispectral, if you got hyperspectral bands to the order of 100 and 200 bands of the order of 5 to 10 nanometer, and high spatial resolution, we can find out different kind of urban material. These kind of material in urban surfaces, their behavior, their property can be assessed. Now, in the recent times, urban flooding, instances of urban flooding, they are rising. So, what's the solution? Is there any solution we can find out? Can we map the areas which are vulnerable for urban flooding? Can we do the forecasting of urban flooding areas? Is it possible? Let us try to understand the issue, because the floods in the ancient times, they were not so frequent, but with the passage of urbanization, they are happening at much faster pace. And we human beings are the reason. Like it is a certain city where there's a lake, water body. You can see here data of 2003 and then the data of 2016. How a natural or wetland has been encroached upon, and how this supposed to absorb the water during the peak time, and that this same water can be utilized during the deficient time, and also it was acting as the absorbent and counteraction against the urban floods, and this has gone changed into the urban impervious surfaces. So we are the cause, we are generating the causes where the floods or instances are rising. If that is so, because the risk mapping is a subject of hazard and vulnerability. So, based on this, we can utilize various hydrological and hydrodynamic model coupled with the GIS. Various tools are available, and these tools are either in the open domain, open source, or are as commercial software, and then we can do the vulnerability analysis. Vulnerability analysis based on the elevation, based on the land use, based on the vulnerability of the living city urban dwellers. If we multiply these two, aggregate these two information, then we can generate the risk. And this risk will speak about areas which are much prone or which will get flooded at much faster pace, and accordingly one has to deduce, city planners should deduce either in the form of broadening the drainage systems, laying new drainage systems, or other kind of different mechanisms so that the flood risk gets reduced. Okay. I'll also speak about one applications in the regional planning, because regional planning per se, as I said, it's also gaining very high importance. That's how the government has brought about in the 1985 the National Capital Region, which which is spread across several states and almost 28 towns spread as urban centers, metro centers to the extent of counter magnet areas, and then all the land use regulation is bring into force so that the ribbonized kind of pattern is avoided, and all this urbanization process they are regulated. We conducted a study for the Chandigarh, and then we all know Chandigarh is the planned city and a model city in India, which came up based on our vision of our former Prime Minister, and accordingly, the that time the city architect of the city, Lee Corbusier, also he has defined that there will be a no development zone around 16 kilometers to the Chandigarh city. But with the passage of time, we have seen the satellite towns like the Mohali and the Zirakpur and Sasnagar, Sasnagar and Mohali, they have come, Panchkula, they have come in the vicinity. Accordingly, what is happening, though the land use is controlled, but in the vicinity, the density has gone much higher, and the commuters, they are frequently coming to the city, and also the density as envisaged, population as envisaged in the plan process, that has gone much higher. So, based on the trend of urban growth, we try to find out, based on the current extent of the city and the projected end extent of the city based on urban growth modeling, and based on certain policy guidelines, we try to evolve a boundary for the greater Chandigarh region. And then once you have got this boundary for the GCR 2050 again, and then a policy regulation not only for the Chandigarh but also to its satellite towns can be brought about, so that the haphazard growth not only in the Chandigarh city but in the vicinity can also be put into practice. So accordingly, a research exercise was conducted. That's how the boundaries or the policies can be driven based on satellite remote sensing data or based on urban growth modeling and based on certain policy and guidelines. When I come to the different kind of flagship programs of Government of India under the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, we have got four major programs. Those are Smart City, Amrit, Swachh Bharat, and Hriday. And each program, the government has laid emphasis on utilization of geospatial technology. We all know Smart City mission is nothing but utilization of ICT, information and communication technology, to make our city more livable. Amrit Mission speaks about the services and master plan formulation, Swachh Swachh Bharat Abhiyan speaks about the make the city clean and defecation free. Hriday program speaks about the preservation and conservation of the heritage cities. Another program called Prime Minister Awas Yojana that speaks about the providing the providing the low cost housing to the marginal society of the urban dwellers. When you say smart city, which de- deals into the four major aspects: retrofitting, redevelopment, greenfield, and pan city. How the geospatial technology can be used for each purpose, let us try to understand. I'll not get into the details. I hope the participants are aware or have heard about all these strategies for the smart city development. Let us see how the technology can be used. Like in the case of satellite data, we had the plan in the Gujarat. It's a model for the rest of the India and the world. Like the Samarmati river front, there was a haphazard development, and the river contained all the in the vicinity. Hardly one would like to visit. But the following the intervention of the government, we have got the Sabarmati Riverfront Development Authority, where either side of the river there has been trained, and the river water has been put. You can see, as you understand, that the color of the water body that also denotes its quality, that means its turbidity and also the depth. You understand that as the turbidity reduces, the color will go darker. As the depth increases, the color will go darker. Now you can see the change, how the either side of the river has been changed, and it also has got become a recreation space. And accordingly, different kind of development schemes under the city mission is ongoing. I'll quote some example. Like an example is the Bheni Vichar, how the information is captured under the redevelopment. A typical urban node and in the process of redevelopment in the year 2000, with the low-rise buildings are there, and in the process of redevelopment they have been captured, and the high-rise setups with higher FAR and more vacant or the open space, they are coming up in the near vicinity. So this is the artistic impression and ground picture of the current and the proposed structure, and how the satellite data is capturing the information. Let us see more, some pictorial information. Greenfield development of Songdok city in the Korea is the example. How the urban planners and the smart and the smart city. I mean, those who educate the smart city development, they quote an example about the Songdong in Korea, how this in 1984, how the Songdong city grew, and how based on land reclamation processes, how the as a greenfield development the Songdong city has come up. Let us see more under the retrofitting on the Rajpur road of Dehradun. You can see on the either side of the Rajpur road which goes towards the Masuri, on either side, retrofitting aspect has been conducted, and there is a parking space which have come up. There's some spaces for the recreation, and also the different kind of surfaces they have brought about where the people, the urban dwellers, can also commute easily and also find some space for the going to the into the other parts of the city. They can go. How they has been captured from the year 2003 to 2012, and a surface, this is a Rajpur Road, 2019. So there's a power exercise which was conducted by the city planners in Dehradun. Schemes like Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, where the individual households they have been mapped using the GPS with the photographs. Location has been put into the each household, put in the map, position, coordinates, and photographs. All this information, this data is available on the Bhuvan portal, and an exercise was conducted for the Andhra Pradesh state. Under the smart city application, all these aspects, as I said earlier, site identification, selection, evaluation, and other processes, the consultants and also the special purpose vehicle which has been mooted as a process in the development process. They are utilizing the technology under the major flagship program of Atal Mission, which primarily focuses on the urban infrastructure and also the master plan formulation. I like to emphasize that Indian Institute of Remote Sensing and National Remote Sensing Center, these two entities of the ISRO, we have played. I mean, we have played major role because we at IRS we have devised along with town and country planning operation of the total program content, because the capacity building is very important to for the urban planners, town planners, and engineers to how that this technology can be used for the master plan formulation and also for the urban infrastructure development. So we devised three-tier program ranging from 3 days to the 2 weeks for the 4 weeks for at different level for the senior town planner, a decision maker to the town planner or assistant town planner level, how this technology can be used for base map generation, thematic map generation, and finally for a formulation of master plan. So we have conducted several training programs, and let me mention here that at country level, more than 600 participants they have been trained by the institutions across the country, including IIRS. In the Hriday program, again for the mapping and for also for the analysis purpose, the technology can be has been utilized along with the different government entities like Archaeological Survey of India, and examples are available on the Bhuvan platform. Under the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, this opportunity available for mapping the assets. It may be primary bin, it may be secondary. I mean, it will be bin. I mean, from the primary collection to the secondary collection, for the dustbin locations to the waste dumping site selection. All these one, this opportunity to available for GIS based mobile apps development and also for the GIS portal. And there are plenty of examples available in the country where research institutes, planning institutes, or the local bodies, along with the different entities, they have developed their own portal and also the apps to facilitate the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Let me mention here, I thought that for the benefit of the viewers here, let me also mention here that we all say that and with all expectation, let us hope that with all implementation of the programs by the government of India, our quality of life of the urban dwellers will improve, will enhance. But where is the service level benchmark? So accordingly, different kind of benchmarks have been set by the urban planners engineers. Let me mention here there is a specific ISO guideline which mentions about the indicator for the city services and quality of life. In the Western world, ISO 37120, which is earmarked for the quality of life, which depends on various indicators. That's how the cities try to compete and try to acquire the ISO certified city or urban local bodies. That's how the opportunities available and also they standardize the service level benchmark for, for standardizing the standards of the city. Now, let me also move further the research aspect. We all understand that the urban planners and engineers, we are data hungry. We require data. But the question comes, if you formalize any project, if the half of the time goes in the data procurement and generation, then by the time we get into the analysis, much of the time is already gone and little time available for the planning purposes. That's how the our consortium has been built called Group on Earth Observation. And at though currently it is at coarser, moderate or coarser scale, but variety of data resources which are being made available at global level, which will include global human settlement layer, global population, global built up surfaces, global global climate layer, and so forth, even the poverty mapping, etc., etc. So that one can use this data for subsequent analysis. Let us. I want to. And this data, if you look at where if you visit the websites, these are the sources which are available. You can visit this website where atlas of the human planet they are being built, which includes information on the global human settlement layer, their location, built up density, population, and also the built up quality. This has been built based on temporal satellite data which is acquired since 1975, starting from the Landsat series of satellites. So we have got enormous data which is available. And using this data and based on the machine learning algorithm since 1975, at different resolution, the data is available. And this four epochs of data global human settlement layer, which is available. Now we at Iris, what we are doing, we are trying to map these all data which is available from these platforms, and we are trying to create a customized portal where the urban planners and engineers, based on this different administrative hierarchy at state level, at district level, or at sub district level, try to find out how the urban growth has happened over the period of time, how the water bodies are changing over the period of time, how the green spaces they are changing over the period of time. Is it possible based on algorithms how the project, how the city will grow in vicinity, which direction? Leave apart that with the business as usual scenario, one can do it. But any policy change also large scale changes the dimension and scale of the city. So all what we are doing, that all these spatial temporal satellite data and also the its derived outputs, that means built up surface, night lights, population, pollution, etc., etc., we're trying to ingest into a kind of portal, and this kind of effort, research effort is going. It is not yet mature, and the effort is going. We're trying to customize the urban surfaces to facilitate the urban planners and engineers. Now, this is important because typically urban planners, we all know that the urban surfaces they have only acquired till now we know only 4%. But where is the quantification? It was just some kind of heuristic approach which was followed. But if you look at this GHSL data, it is telling us that since 1975, the global human settlement, that means built up surfaces, from 3.79 lakhs to the 5.323 lakhs to the tune of 77,893,85 square kilometers, how they are changing. So one can find out the time series satellite data, and also one can do the mapping of human settlement, how they are changing. Of course, any measurement is time, scale, and accuracy dependent. But now we have got information, and if you divide this information by the total land surface area, you will find that the only 3% of the global land surface is under urban areas. So it's how is a global depiction of the urban built up surfaces. So we are trying to customize it, and all this we are going to create a graphical user interface based on, and finally our purpose is kind to create and provide a toolbox for to the urban planners where a single click of a button information how the urban surfaces they are changing with the time, and with the spatial pattern how they are changing. You can see how this information one can find out in animation mode. Right now it is because of the limitation, I have not put in the spatial domain, but it's available how the built-up services views from the initial period 1975, 1980s, 1990s, 2000, and 2020. How the built-up surfaces are changing, How, if that is so, then which direction under the business as usual scenario, which way the city will grow? We also got the data from the nighttime lights from the DMSP, OLS, or from the VIRS. We are also trying to put all this information from the central data into the urban informatics. This kind of endeavor is ongoing. I'll try to conclude here that still, our quest, our thirst for information is not yet over because still there's a challenges. That challenges are: is it possible that all this information which we typically acquire from the ground resources, is it possible to simulate, to acquire this information from the ground satellite based sources? Is it possible? Still there is, and this information will not only depend on the mapping of urban surfaces, also its surroundings in terms of material which will come from the hyperspectral domain, in the three-dimensional information which will come from the sources like lidar or from the microwave, or also from the urban microclimate point of view, which will come from the temperature regime, from the precipitation, ozone, or the thermal regime. So there is a large requirement which we are posing. I hope in times to come, the remote sensing community, they will be in times to come. They will coming up solutions. Maybe in another decade or so, in this decade or in the decades to come, to supplement the information for which are required for the urban planning. So accordingly, there is a large opportunity which is available for operational or for the research purposes, for deriving the information which are relevant for the urban and regional planning. I'm thankful to you all for your patient hearing, and then I have put here variety of some of these references which are available in the book form or otherwise, and I'm thankful for you all. And some of these material which I have put into this is because this the enormous activity, and the urban remote sensing is coming a big way. So some of the slides of by which and the studies which have been conducted by my colleagues, I have put into this presentation. I'm thankful to all of you, all of them, and thank you very much.